the other big story of our era. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. and Mrs. RAMBO. Mr. and Mrs. RAMBO, that's right. We've got two people who were in St. Louis, I believe. I'm not sure where they were. I think it's the St. Louis protesters. Look at these two outside of their mansion with an AR-15, and I'm not sure what that other one is. Looks like it would get the job done, but it's a little guy. Nothing wrong with little guys. It's all good. All right, so these two people, Mr. and Mrs. RAMBO, we actually call them the McCloskeys. And if you remember, there were protests going on. These two, who I think are actually lawyers, they live in this gigantic mansion, a beautiful piece of property. And Black Lives Matter protesters or protesters from some affiliation were running through their neighborhood. They actually break into Mr. and Mrs. RAMBO's private property. They start walking up along their private road, and there's no police and there's no private security, so they grab their guns. And you probably have seen this already. I mean, you've seen the video and you've seen this story, but we've got a couple clips. I want to run through them with you just to catch you up on the story if you're not already familiar. This was kind of an interesting story. It's going to tie into criminal law because, of course, these people who are exercising their rights, there's going to be somebody who's upset about it and they're going to want to charge them with crimes, and we're going to hear from that person shortly. But before we do, let's take a quick look and find out what actually happened in this case, because it is it's kind of comical. All right, so you can hear him yelling, "Get the hell out of my neighborhood."
Y'all can see.
Get out, he's screaming.
He got his rifle. Y'all can see.
Get out, it's private property, it's private property. He keeps screaming at him.
As y'all can see. This individual does have a rifle.
Looks like an AR-15 going on. Different angle, got both of those going simultaneously. He's pointing that gun pretty close to his wife there. You know, that makes me a little bit nervous on that. But that's really about it. I mean, there's not much more to it. You know, they're standing there on the front porch. They've got their weapons. They've got their firearms. The joke from the community of gun lovers, which I happen to be in, is, you know, hey, guys, a little bit more, you know, a little bit more trigger discipline, a little bit more, you know, training on there would be great. But they're in the heat of the moment. You know, this is their property. This is their castle. It actually looks like literally a castle. And they've got these people who they do not know who are coming through onto their property, and they are scared to death, as they should be. You know, they've got a lot of things. They've got a lot of assets. They've obviously done very well for themselves. You can take a position on that one way or the other, that they're too rich and they're too white and they've got too much stuff and they deserve to have that stuff taken from them. If you subscribe to those Marxist ideologies, you're welcome to do that. I personally do not at all. And so if they've earned that property, if it's theirs, they have a right to protect it. That's their sanctuary. So when you have people who come through and break in there, they have every right to grab a gun, every right to stand there on their porch and protect what is theirs. I've covered this on the show ad nauseum too, about how important property is. It's fundamental to so many different things that we do in society, not because it's property. I'm not talking about an iPhone. I'm talking about you trading your life, your labor, to do and create something. And that may be money that you then go buy other property with. So your property is sort of an extension of your life. You're trading your life to earn the money to go buy the property. So if somebody's taking your property away from you, there's a good argument that they're really kind of impacting and impeding your life. They're taking something that you've traded your time to create. They're taking that away from you. And you have an obligation to protect it. You've got a duty to protect it. And you're well within your rights to do it. It's right. It's in our founding documents. So for them to come on there, this couple, in my mind, was within every right of theirs to stand there with their firearms. No legal issues there at all that I can see. And there's some pretty good supporting evidence. So now the question then becomes, people on the other side are saying, well, they shouldn't have pointed their guns, and they were far away and they weren't a threat and all those things. And it's like, guys, it doesn't matter. If somebody's breaking into your property, you've got a right to stand there and protect it. Now, the laws are what the laws are in all the various different states. I'm sort of saying this as a prescriptive opinion that I think this is how it should be. Some other states, of course, check your local statutes. Don't go stand on your front porch with a firearm and say you watch this show. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. But in a situation like this, when you're feeling threatened, whether the law says it or not, I mean, you have a right to protect your life, your family, and your property, your castle, in my mind. And that's exactly what this couple did. So some people are saying, well, they didn't break in, they didn't do any of that stuff. Well, we were looking through it, and it looks like pretty clear that this was kind of a breaking and entering type of situation. Here is the gate that existed before. So they have a private street, access limited to residents, and the protesters just broke it down. They just knocked it right down, and they just went right through into this private little residence, into that private drive. And we've been seeing a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't blame these people for being scared. I don't blame them for, getting a little bit loose with their trigger discipline, or, pointing the guns in areas that they probably shouldn't have. I understand that. The adrenaline is flowing. They're probably scared to death, and rightfully so, because they've seen what's been going on around the country. People are literally getting killed around the country. Cops are getting killed in these protests. Cops have been shot and killed. People have been shot and killed. In Chaz and Chop, I think a 16-year-old kid and a 14-year-old kid were shot. One's dead, one's in critical condition. So you don't know what is happening anywhere. They're pulling down statues, they're lighting, restaurants on fire. The protests are bad. So if they're breaking into your neighborhood, and you happen to live in a rich white neighborhood, and people are pissed off at rich white people, there's probably a good indication that you should be concerned about that based on what we've been seeing. So if you grab your gun and you want to protect your residents, totally within everything that is right in my mind. Absolutely the right thing to do. I wouldn't fault them at all for that. And I don't think most people do, but there are those people who are just, white privilege, and they're going to beat that drum to death no matter what the situation.